Joe Metheny, the cannibal killer. Joe Roy Metheny, also known as the Cannibal Killer, was an American serial killer and cannibal who became notorious for his gruesome crimes in the 1990s. Metheny claimed to have murdered multiple people, and his chilling confession that he sold human flesh mixed with animal meat as hamburgers from his food stand shocked the world. Metheny's case is one of the most disturbing examples of extreme violence, cannibalism, and remorselessness. Early life and background. Joseph Roy Metheny was born on March 2, 1955, in Baltimore, Maryland. His upbringing was marked by poverty and instability. Metheny later claimed that his father was an alcoholic who died in a car accident when Metheny was 6 years old. His mother struggled to support him and his siblings, and Metheny claimed that she neglected him and placed him in foster care. Metheny's mother denied these allegations, stating that while the family had financial struggles, she worked multiple jobs to provide for her children, and that Metheny had a normal upbringing. However, his life took a dark turn as he grew older. Metheny dropped out of school, became addicted to drugs and alcohol, and began living a transient lifestyle, working as a truck driver and doing odd jobs around Baltimore. Metheny was known for his imposing size, standing over 6 feet tall and weighing more than 450 pounds, which earned him the nickname Tiny among acquaintances. Despite his outward affability, Metheny harbored deep-seated rage and violent tendencies, which would later manifest in a series of brutal murders. The beginning of Metheny's killing spree. Metheny's violent spree began in 1994, when his wife left him, taking their young son with her. This event was the catalyst for Metheny's descent into murder. Enraged by her abandonment, Metheny went on a quest to find her, scouring homeless camps and seedy parts of Baltimore where he believed she might be staying. During this search, Metheny claimed that he encountered 2 homeless men who he believed had helped his wife. Fueled by rage and drug use, Metheny murdered both men with an axe. Metheny was arrested for the murders of the 2 homeless men but was later released due to lack of evidence. Despite his release, this initial act of violence marked the beginning of a much more horrific killing spree that would span several years. The gruesome murders and cannibalism. Over the next several years, Metheny would claim the lives of multiple victims, primarily women, many of whom were involved in sex work or suffered from addiction. Metheny lured his victims to isolated locations, such as his trailer or the wooded areas near his workplace, where he would torture, rape, and murder them. After killing them, Metheny would dismember their bodies, sometimes keeping parts of their flesh for consumption. In one of his most chilling confessions, Metheny described how he would mix the flesh of his victims with animal meat and sell it as hamburgers from a food stand he operated on the side of the road. He claimed that no one ever noticed the difference between human flesh and regular meat. Metheny would dispose of the rest of his victims' remains by burying them or throwing them into the Patapsco River in Maryland. Notable victims. While the exact number of Metheny's victims is unclear, he claimed to have killed at least 10 people, though he was only convicted of 2 murders. Some of his known victims include Kathy Ann Magaziner, a 39-year-old woman who was murdered by Metheny in 1994. He buried her body in a shallow grave and later dug up her remains to remove her skull and keep it as a trophy. Kimberly Lynn Spicer, murdered by Metheny in 1996. He stabbed Spicer to death and dismembered her body, hiding parts of her remains in a nearby location. Rita Kemper, a woman Metheny attempted to murder in 1996. Kemper managed to escape Metheny's trailer and reported the attack to the police, leading to his eventual arrest. Arrest and confession. Metheny's reign of terror came to an end in December 1996, when police arrested him for the murder of Kimberly Spicer after a friend of his, who helped him dispose of Spicer's remains, reported the crime to authorities. During his interrogation, Metheny shocked investigators by confessing not only to Spicer's murder but also to several others. He freely admitted to killing Kathy and Magaziner and other women, and he provided gruesome details about his acts of cannibalism. Metheny showed no remorse for his actions, and he seemed to take pleasure in describing the brutal details of his murders. Metheny's cold, remorseless confession included one of his most infamous quotes. Trial and conviction. In 1997, Metheny was convicted of the murders of Kimberly Spicer and Kathy and Magaziner. During the trial, Metheny's defense attorneys attempted to argue that his violent upbringing and history of drug addiction contributed to his actions, but this did little to sway the court. The jury was horrified by the brutal nature of the murders and Metheny's casual attitude toward his crimes. Metheny was sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole for his crimes, narrowly avoiding the death penalty. Despite his conviction, Metheny continued to claim responsibility for additional murders, though investigators were unable to corroborate all of his confessions. Death in prison. Joe Metheny spent the remainder of his life in the Western Correctional Institution in Cumberland, Maryland. On August 5, 2017, he was found dead in his prison cell at the age of 62. The cause of death was not immediately released, but authorities ruled out foul play. Legacy and psychological insights. Joe Metheny's case remains one of the most chilling examples of serial murder and cannibalism in modern American history. His calm and detailed confessions, coupled with his complete lack of remorse, painted the picture of a man who took pleasure in inflicting pain and consuming human flesh. Metheny's use of human flesh in hamburgers added a level of horror to his crimes that resonated with the public, making him a figure of both fear and morbid fascination. Psychologists have speculated that Metheny's violent behavior was fueled by a combination of his traumatic childhood, substance abuse, and intense feelings of rage and abandonment. His cannibalism and willingness to sell human flesh to unsuspecting customers highlight the depths of his depravity and detachment from human empathy.